Welcome, people. There is a prominent conflict in the world: democracy versus authoritarianism. Needless to say, that authoritarianism is winning. In order to preserve and improve democracy, people require three qualities. They need to be more knowledgeable, more creative, and wiser than people in authoritarian societies. The websites that I'm going to introduce are great sources of information, and if you only read a small portion of news every year, you still will be able to build up passive knowledge, you will be able to understand the system and involve yourself into democratic procedures, and you will be able to get better at critical thinking and form better opinions. Also, you will less likely to be susceptible to propaganda. With this, let's begin. First, the European Parliament's press room. From here, you can access the latest topics and positions that are being discussed and adopted by the members and committees of the Parliament. While these adopted positions might not be final, they provide an important outline of what the final legislative act will entail. The document's readability is clean and beginner-friendly, and the texts are relatively short with highlights and hyperlinks. For some reason, there is no filter by latest date, so you have to be very specific with the time frame you choose. You can filter content by committees and find news such as the new economy governance reform, which fundamentally amends how governments manage their finances. Or like this AI Act, where you can gain insight into how the EU plans to regulate AI. In the plenary content type, you can gain information about the results of the plenary meetings. For example, the new mandate on online child sexual abuse. You can read both the Parliament's position and the key points of this mandate. Another which you may find important is a Right to Repair Act encouraging repairs over replacement. On the other type, you get less pressing information which you probably don't want to concern yourself with. The latest website update has made it possible for you to access all of this information separated by topic. Overall, I consider this to be one of the best sources of interesting and impactful EU-related information, so I recommend checking this website quite often. The official journal. First, we need to talk about the L and C series. The L series includes legislative acts and non-legislative acts, while the C series is a more technical version of two other websites that I'm going to talk about later on. Within the L series, you may find the most relevant or interesting information in international agreements, regulations, and decisions. All documents from the L series are highly detailed and technical. They mention the legislations related to the topic, letting us dive even further if we are interested. You can find information like these regularly. For example, about this PPC chlorine liquid, we can get information on how it can be used. This means that we have real-time information on the new chemicals that clean our drinking water. If you truly want to know what is happening in the EU, I highly recommend taking a quick glance at the headlines to see if there is anything interesting. This will only take you a minute, and while they might not be as appealing as the regular news, some of these documents are very important. The Commission's Press Corner. This site is useful if you're interested in certain topics. You can select the document types, of which I recommend the following. First, fact sheets. These are downloadable, easily readable, and intuitive presentations. Second, country insights. Comprehensive, a bit hard to read but quite detailed, specifically looking at important areas within a country. Third, infringements. Reported monthly, it's about the Commission's position on Commission versus Member State and Member State versus Member State cases. Non-transposition documents are Commission calls upon all Member States who did not communicate measures on how they are adopting directives into their national law. Fourth, press release. The news usually appear here 1 to 2 days earlier than in the highlighted news section, and it also has more news to choose from. Fifth, Q&As. These explain new legislations and important situations in the EU. Additionally, they include the Commission's position on topics like the Citizens' Initiative proposals. You can also select policy areas and college members. Regarding college members, you must know which departments are they responsible for. So here's a list of the college members and the Commission departments. The Commission has great importance in the EU as it has the sole power to initiate new legislations, oversees the member states, and plays an important role in managing EU funds. Therefore, I recommend checking this website once or twice a week. The Commission's local representation news. These are hand-translated news provided by the local offices of the Commission. While there is consistent news across member states, some information is either missing or extra. In this sense, it is quite inconsistent. Remember that these missing news usually apply to all member states, so people who only read from their national site are in a disadvantage. Specific targeted information is also different, such as the disinformation-related ones. For example, the Hungarian focuses more on child protection, while the Latvian more on Russian propaganda. To be honest, I would not choose my own Commission office as the primary source of EU news, but rather machine translate the other websites. However, I would recommend it to high schoolers, especially the part where it gives them a complete presentation on recognizing disinformation. EU press releases. Press releases could serve as your primary news hub, since it gathers information from various institutions in one place. Unfortunately, you can only select the source to avoid the bloated information sea and not the document type, like in the case of the European Parliament or the Commission. This means that you must be familiar with these institutions to effectively filter out information. In my opinion, however, you don't need to know about the majority of these institutions, and the lack of advanced search make this website inefficient and unintuitive. Therefore, as long as it doesn't include document type filters by institution, I personally wouldn't use this website. The Council's press releases and statements. The Council of the European Union, or the Council in short, functions sort of as the voice of the EU governments, and it has an important role in the legislative procedures. Here we focus on specifically the Council of the EU press releases. This website has less daily news and a different report style than the European Parliament's press room. For example, when we compare the AI Act from the Council with the Parliament's version, we can see a clear difference. We can get information such as the Council's position on enlargement or the Gigabit Infrastructure Act. You can filter by topics on the left side, or if you want to single out a specific topic, you can do that in the Topics section. This gives you a much clearer view as each have their own policies, meetings, press releases, infographics and publications listed separately. I especially recommend this site if you're interested about some legislation in progress or use it as supplementary to the European Parliament's press room. The European Defence Agency. The EDA offers news related to external defense. I recommend the latest news and spotlight categories. The news are occasional and short summaries on current defense developments, while spotlights are longer explanatory documents. There are some interesting materials available, however, new information is not uploaded frequently. Moreover, the information available is not for everybody, but still I recommend going through the website a few times a year. Competition cases. On this site, there are two things that might interest you. The first is the state aid category, where you can see each nation inform the Commission about their state aid plans. The Commission can decide whether to launch an investigation or not. Sometimes the decision is not immediately published. However, once it is, the text contains information on the background and application of the state aid, along with an explanation to the Commission's decision. The second interesting is the Digital Markets Act, or DMA. In the future, there might be newer regulations to come, which you can follow from here. Additionally, if you are interested in merger and antitrust documents, you can read them from here. You can, for example, read the Commission's position on Microsoft's acquisition of Blizzard, or that the EU raised objections against Amazon from buying up a vacuum cleaner company due to competition issues, or the most recent one explaining why Apple was fined $1.8 billion. I recommend this website if you're interested in any of these topics, especially whenever you hear about a merger or antitrust case within the EU or on a global scale. Lastly, the European Union External Action. I personally don't find a lot of useful news here, but you might. On the left side, you can choose between different types of documents, regions, and topics. However, topics function similarly to tags on social media platforms, which I find impractical. It requires navigating through each specific tag for the same topic, like COVID one by one. Let's look at the different types of documents. Op-eds are the opinions of some of the most important people of the EU. These opinions usually reflect how the next 5 to 15 years will play out. Press releases are short summaries on certain meetings and events. Similarly, statements and declarations are also short, concise summaries on international matters and meetings. I don't consider visiting this website to be crucial because some news here are hyperlinks to the Commission and Council. However, it could be useful if you're interested in certain topics that can only be found here. We reach the extras. The following sites will help you getting involved with democracy, finding important research, and understanding different viewpoints. The Citizens Initiative. Citizens Initiative is a platform where regular citizens can register proposals. The proposal has 12 months to get 1 million votes across 7 member states before the Commission reviews it. After review, the Commission either denies or accepts the initiative. The reason I mention this platform because I truly believe that we can make the EU better through this process. All we need is 1 million votes out of over 400 million EU citizens. Yet since 2011, there have been only 109 registered initiatives, out of which 59 failed due to lack of votes. Among the then-passed initiatives, the anti-abortion one received the most votes, about 1.7 million. Considering the EU's population, one might expect more supporters for this kind of cause. The fact is that most of these initiatives are barely reaching 10,000 supporters. In my opinion, there are 2 reasons for that. The first is that probably around 10% of each nation knows about this website. The second is the weak quality of the initiatives. However, the second reason is a consequence of the first. The intellectuals in our countries are unmotivated to create better initiatives because of the low public participation rate. So the solution is very simple. Share the website with more people. Hopefully, this will result better and possible proposals in the future. So please share this website and vote for some of these initiatives. It only takes you a couple of seconds, and if you worry about your privacy, don't. Using Google is less private than this. Think Tank. Think Tank consists of documents including studies that shape new legislation. If you're interested about a specific topic but don't have time to read dozens of books and research papers, then here you might find a comprehensive study or analysis. On the homepage, you can see the newest documents by type, and if you want to be more technical, you can use the advanced search. Among publication types, there are studies and analyses that are requested by parliamentary committees to assist them in their work. For example, there is an entire 160-page study on the metaverse. You can also find the in-depth analysis on how the Commission delivered on their priorities under von der Leyen. Overall, you can get information on nearly everything that is related to one of the parliamentary committees. I recommend reading the summary first, then navigating to the points that interest you. The other categories are also important. From the briefings category, the most important subtype is the presentation on EU legislation in progress, which usually don't exceed 20 pages. Fact sheets are basically history lessons on policies, institutions, and mechanisms, answering questions such as why they exist and what their main points are. Finally, at a glance is for everything else, like remembering past events or giving short explanations on key issues and current legislations. The European Economic and Social Committee. This institution supports the legislative procedure with its opinions. I put this website into the extra section as its only true value is to help form better opinions, but it doesn't qualify as a place to get primary information from. On the News tab, you can select based on related policy. For example, selecting Consumer Policy greets us with the idea that the EU should ban unrepairable products. As I said, these opinions have some weight in the official legislative procedure, but not enough to directly influence a legislation. Overall, reading this committee's opinions might be one of the best ways to gain unique perspective on contemporary issues. Therefore, anytime you need a solid argument on something, I highly recommend this site. To some extent, the regular news are less important than these. There will be days or even months without any interesting news, so you don't have to read all of these. If you only read the news about the topics that you're interested in, you will gain much more valuable information than from regular news. I hope that you start regularly visiting these websites. Goodbye.